Okay, good evening. This is Thomas Freed on the Liberty Works Radio Network. This is the Truth Attack Hour, and yes, that's right. We're back. We're back with the Truth Attack. So let's get right into this because I got a lot of stuff I want to try and get through today, and we're not going to have the time. We are the Liberty Works Radio Network, and we do need the support of the members of the listening audience to keep the network broadcasts coming and the network operating. So if you enjoy the shows, the information, the discussions, the lectures, and the guests on the other show and the hosts on the other shows, we sure would appreciate it if you could find your way over to the libertyworksradionetwork.com website. Get signed up as a monthly subscribing member. Even if it's as little as $10, $20 a month, every membership helps, and we do need your support to keep the network operating. So libertyworksradionetwork.com. Check it out, listen in, tell your friends, neighbors, family, business associates to check it out, get informed, get educated, and join the March to Freedom. And if you want to become fully informed on my favorite topic on this show, you need to find your way over to taxfreedom.com and start reading about how the IRS, the DOJ, and the judges of the lower federal courts have been maladministering the provisions of the federal income tax for 75 years, claiming to the American people that it's a direct tax under the 16th Amendment. It's frivolous to argue anything else. Well, they're lying to you. And Donald Trump's new tax law proves it. So if you want the proof that we don't have a tax system, it's a peonage debt system, find your way over to Tax Freedom, tax-freedom.com, and start reading. And if you want the documents to prove it to anyone who doubts it, find your way over to irszoom.com and pick yourself up a copy of The Simple Truth About Income Tax for just $6. Or pick yourself up a copy of the 71 exhibit pages that go with the audio lectures I've put up on the YouTube Thomas Freed channel, which you can link to right off of my website. At taxfreedom.com, I've got a big link for the Thomas Freed YouTube channel. You just click on it, you can go over, you can listen to the audio while you walk through the exhibits that you've got in hand, and then you'll be able to teach this information to anyone in the country you want to teach it to. It's all irrefutable. It's right there in the law. The IRS is lying to you. We don't have a tax system because none of the money goes in the U.S. Treasury. It's all routed around the Treasury illegally to the Federal Reserve Bank under a peonage debt service program that they've been running since 1913, when they gave the unconstitutional monopoly on currency and credit to the Federal Reserve Bank and instituted the income tax to later deceive the American people about its true nature and force them into a debt service program that has the labors of the American people being used collectively all across the country by Congress, illegally, unconstitutionally, to collateralize the $35 trillion worth of debt that the Federal Reserve Bank has loaned to Congress. And as long as the Federal Reserve Bank sees the American people, the docile sheep, allowing themselves to be used and their labor to be controlled illegally and unconstitutionally in order to fund more borrowing, the bankers will continue to lend to Congress. And the minute the American people stand up and stop the unconstitutional use of their labor as collateral for the debt system, the bankers will stop lending and Congress will be forced to do something about it. So there's the bottom line. Get educated or be enslaved. Put your faith in God, not government. Government betrays your faith and uses it to enslave you to whatever cause they're pushing as the current agenda. Whether it be climate change, Korea, Vietnam, or the Nazis in Germany and the imperial Japanese in the Pacific. You put your faith in government, you will be betrayed, which is what the American government did to the American people right after World War II and the expiration of the victory tax. They enslaved you through a system of withholding by allowance without any tax being imposed. Don't believe me? Go over to taxfreedom.com and start reading. So, there you have it. www.taxfreedom.com to get educated, irszoom.com to get armed. And if you know anyone who's received a piece of correspondence from the IRS, because they're waking up now after 2.5 years of sleeping through COVID, if you know anyone who's received a letter, tell them to go over to irszoom.com, where they can get a letter that answers the IRS correspondence with law for less than $50 per letter. No retainer needed, 30, 40, or 50 to answer the IRS with law. There's nothing that they do that's legal. There isn't a single piece of correspondence they issue that we don't have the answer for at law, and they can't answer it. So, there you go. Okay, so what's happening out here now? What do we got happening? The Democrats, of course, have gone completely crazy, right? They've gone completely insane. First, it was Joe Biden. Joe Biden, he's healthy, he's good, he's strong, he's alert, he's awake, he's on top of things. And that kind of fell apart. And now it's Kamala is the salvation of the Democrat Party. This woman hasn't done a thing. She hasn't done a thing. And they're trying to remake her entire history by having her deny all of the policies she's advocated for the past. And the media is as crooked as it gets. They're just lining up to do the same cover-up of Kamala that they've been doing for Joe Biden for 3.5 years. I've been telling you for 3.5 years, well, 4 years now, that Joe Biden is senile, has Parkinson's, is incompetent, has dementia onset, and isn't capable of running the country or of running. Now that that's been exposed as being absolutely 100% true, I think everybody should be ready to admit it's been true for 3.5 years, and the media's been lying to you. The White House has been lying to you. The Democratic Party and its leadership has been lying to you, and now they're doing it all over again for Kamala. They're lying to you about her position. She has been the most liberal senator in the Senate. Maybe besides Bernie Sanders, but she and Bernie are the top two most liberal. In the past, she's advocated for ending the use of petroleum, for ending fracking, for all sorts of crazy things. Let's see. She's the giggler, right? I mean, she put black men in prison for years as a prosecutor in California. She failed completely as the border czar. She was going to go and deal with the root of the problem in Central America. How'd that turn out? Yeah, 12 million illegal aliens later. There is no root of the problem other than she and Joe Biden. That's the root of the problem. It's the White House and their policies that refused to finish the wall, that welded the gates open, that are using ICE to process people in rather than to arrest and deport. And they're actually playing Uber for the child smuggling rings. They don't know it, but that's exactly what they're doing. Or actually, maybe they do know it and they just don't care. Eventually, that child will turn 18 and will vote for the Democrats, right? That's the plan. She said she wanted to end fracking. She wants to buy votes from illegals. She's up for spend, 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 which has destroyed the middle class. And now she's going to save the middle class. The media is lying to you. Joe Biden was delusional. Kamala is even worse. She's as crooked as Joe. They're both pathological liars. They pander to whatever audience they're speaking in front of. They've never stuck to a policy position in their entire life. Moderate Joe turned into the ultra-radical, extreme left-wing puppet. And Kamala will be exactly the same thing. The crooked media and the Democratic Party have become the enemy of the American people, urging for government supremacy and rule over every single aspect of our society and our daily lives. This is outright socialism. People say, oh, people don't like Kamala because she's black and because she's a female. Who cares about her color or her gender? She's a godforsaken communist. She's a socialist. That's what we care about. The destruction of private property, the destruction of individual rights, the advancement of the belief that government should rule every aspect of society and not just the things the Constitution specifically gives them authority over. And of course, we know we're upset about that, right? I mean, they're just going crazy over Roe v. Wade being appealed, Kamala still thinks she can write a federal law that says no state shall interfere with the right. She doesn't understand. This is how stupid the Democrats are. Or maybe it's not that they're stupid. They think you are. They think you're that stupid, that you don't understand that the recent Dobbs decision from the Supreme Court means the federal government can't write abortion law, neither the Republicans nor the Democrats. The Republicans can't ban it, and the Democrats can't fund it or promote it. It's a state issue for state law. Any federal law will be shot down immediately by this Supreme Court, upholding the previous Dobbs decision. They're just crazy. They won't accept reality. They want to remake the Supreme Court. They want 9 new justices so they can overcome the conservative majority. And of course, they're scared to death that Donald Trump is going to win in November and get to appoint 2 more conservative Supreme Court justices. Holy smokes. Okay, well, what are you going to do? Like I say, Joe's been incompetent. Kamala has been even worse. I call her the giggler. The giggler. The Democrats have bought us crime, an immigration invasion at the border, fentanyl deaths, gang warfare, the invasion of Venezuelan gangs on top of the Central American gangs that were already here. They've given us inflation with bad energy policy that's driven the cost of energy through the roof for everyone. Gasoline, diesel oil, electric bills. Cheap energy is everything. It's your entire economy. Without cheap energy, everyone struggles. When energy is cheap, everyone flourishes. And what do the Democrats want to do? In this time of economic hardship, Harris wants to raise taxes. She wants to end fracking. She wants to terminate oil leases. That will raise the price of gasoline, diesel, and energy even higher. And it is those high energy prices that are primarily responsible for the price increases and the inflation that has destroyed the quality of life for middle-class America. The Democrats' policies are intentionally eliminating the middle class and pushing us into a 2-class existence. The ultra-wealthy aristocracy, literally, that rules the country with its control and monopoly on money, and the poor, who are completely subservient to the debts of the wealthy, and whose labors are taken from them to improve the lot of the wealthy, who continue having access to the capital through the borrowing of the Federal Reserve Bank. And the poor get left out of the equation. With no access to capital, Main Street dies and middle-class America becomes lower class. They've imported 12 million illegal aliens to keep wages down and prevent wages from needing to rise, because there's always an illegal who's willing to do the job for half the pay the American is. And they're registering them to vote to prevent the demographics from shifting on them when American citizens leave the high-tax, high-crime states like California, New York, and go to the low-tax, low-crime states like Idaho, Texas, and Florida. So they don't want to lose electoral college votes. They don't want to lose congressional seats. So they're importing illegal aliens to register them to vote and to be counted in the census, so that they don't lose those congressional seats or electoral college votes. This is giving representation to foreigners. Why are they doing that? Because what they want is a global government, not a national one. They're doing everything they can to get rid of national borders, seize control of global resources so that their one world order, the global village, can step in and take over. A lot of people that think that's what they're engineering the economic collapse in order to effect. And with an inverted yield curve for the last 2.5 years, it's happening. Middle class and Main Street are being denied access to capital, while there's $6 trillion sitting on the sidelines in a stock market that's way overvalued based on real business and future outlook. But based on the money supply printed out during COVID, maybe it's the new balance, because that's where the inflation really showed up, was on Wall Street, as too much cash chases too few valuable assets, i.e. the 7 tech giants that have run through the roof as everybody wakes up and realizes technology is taking over the planet. Okay, this is Thomas Freed on the Liberty Works Radio Network. This is the Truth Attack Hour, and let's just get right back into it. Freedom comes from God, not government. And ye shall know the truth, for the truth shall make you free. God's true plan for mankind is freedom, achieved through faith in God. Any other entity in which you misplace your faith will use your faith against you to enslave you. Only God delivers freedom through faith in He. Any other entity will betray and enslave you. And that, my friends, is the history of government of humanity throughout time. Every authority claims to be the connection to God that you should trust, and He'll do the communicating with God for you, whether it's the king, the emperor, the czar, or the church. They want to replace God with themselves in your life and have you serve them, not He, not the Spirit. So, okay, well, I think that the 4 or 5 major issues that are going to control the way this next election goes, I think, are pretty clear. Energy, economy, border, immigration, and crime. Right? So let's contrast the policies. On energy, and I tell you right now, America's future for the next 10 years will be determined by the next administration's energy policy. Joe Biden's energy policy has been so catastrophic that if it isn't reversed, we will not be able to avoid the recession depression that's coming, and even more expensive energy that will result as a result of electing another Democrat who essentially wants to shut down fracking, terminate oil leases, and put even more upward pressure on the price of gasoline, diesel oil, and energy, which will result in higher product prices across the board. So America's future will be determined by the energy policy of the next administration. And what do we have? Well, the Democrats, as I said, want to push green energy, which wastes money on solar and wind, which can't produce energy that can be stored, which doesn't work when it's cold, which has high startup capitalization costs, and is failing to fulfill the amortization time periods that was supposed to exist. The windmills are failing 15 to 20 years instead of lasting the 30. When you put that into the formula, it doesn't pay. It's no longer profitable. If you have to recapitalize every 20 years instead of every 30, you're losing money. So it's all a fraud. The Democrats are intentionally taking cheap energy away from Americans because when energy is expensive, the people become dependent upon the government. And when energy is cheap, the people don't need the government. They can do things, they can flourish, they can make their bills, they can be creative, they can try new things, they can start new jobs, they can start new companies, they can afford to help friends, family. Energy is everything. It's your jobs, it's your employment, it's your profit, it's your low costs, it's everything. When energy is expensive, everybody struggles. When energy is cheap, all boats float on the rising tide. And what are the two energy policies? As I said, the Democrats want to take away cheap energy, and Donald Trump wants to restore cheap gasoline, cheap diesel oil, cheap energy from the utility plant for lower electric bills. Drill, baby, drill. One wants to produce cheap, clean, efficient energy using the cleanest and most efficient resources and production facilities on the planet. The other one wants to shut down all of those production facilities in order to seize greater control over your life and your energy. So it's the Republican energy policy that will save America. Donald Trump's energy policy. The Democrats will destroy it. And how about economy? That's the next issue. Energy, economy, border, immigration, and crime, right? Well, economy is driven by energy prices and employment. But when energy prices are expensive, people stop consuming because they can barely make their bills or get to work. So when people stop consuming, jobs are lost as factories shut down or slow down and work on filling out back orders instead of new orders. And as the new orders disappear and the back orders are filled, people get laid off and then they get removed. So on economy, you're driven by energy, which means with the Donald Trump energy policy, the economy will get better. As gasoline goes down, diesel oil goes down, electric bills go down, prices can go down. And they won't go down any other way because inflation never goes in reverse. The only thing that goes in reverse is cost components. You bring energy down, and that's a cost component reduction at every single level, every single step of the production cycle in America, from the farm to the consumer. On the border and immigration, well, we've seen what the Democrats' policy is. Let's bring as many foreigners in as we can to replace the citizens leaving California, New York, and Illinois. And then let's spend the money on them to buy their vote. So budget money is being stolen from programs that we're going to fund things for America, and it's being diverted resources for the illegal aliens. The government is representing the aliens, not the citizens. That's the Democrat plan for immigration. And the border plan is wide open. The gates are welded open to make sure they can't even be closed. Donald Trump's plan is to seal the border, stop the flow of illegals, and start deporting all the illegal aliens that are accused of crimes. He says he wants to deport all of them, but the federal government has no way to effect that. They don't have a police force that can move on civilian cities. All they can do is wait for the state to catch someone who's been violent and then take control and deport them. And that's what they need to do. And to get that done, they're going to have to prosecute the people in the state, the Democrats, who are advocating for the sanctuary city policies and are helping hide the illegal aliens from the federal courts and ICE and the control. When the federal wants them as a detainer to take them into custody, the state lets them out the back door of the courtroom. Everybody involved at the state who does that should be arrested and prosecuted for illegally aiding and abetting illegal aliens and staying here and harboring them. It's a crime. I've read it before on the case. I don't have the statute memorized, but it's a crime. It's on the website if you want to check it out. And how about, so border and immigration, the two policies are clear. Donald Trump wants to control that situation and end the mess and redivert the budget funds back to services for Americans instead of illegal aliens. The Democrats want to continue spending money on foreigners and importing more and more. Crime? Well, the Democrats want to reimagine. They want to reimagine criminal enforcement, criminal law enforcement. Yeah, right. You know what that means? That means let the criminals out, subsidize it, let them steal up to $1,000 before there are any consequences. We've seen the Democrats' policies. It's resulted in crime-ridden streets all over America. And they have the balls to claim crime's gone down. Well, you mean the crime statistics appear to have gone down because you stopped reporting the crime, you stopped making arrests of reported criminals, you stopped showing up at scenes of reported crimes. And if you don't write them down, yeah, sure, the statistics reflect a lower level of crime, but they're a lie, aren't they? Just like everything else the Democrat Party says, it's a flat-out lie. Anyone who's walked through the cities of America knows crime is up. Crime is up. People are afraid to go out. And the Democrats aren't responding to it, and the federal government isn't responding to the organized crime of the criminal gangs from Central America or the Venezuelan gangs. Instead, they're arresting and prosecuting parents of children who object to CRT and transgender athletes. They're arresting Catholics who object to abortions. They're attacking January 6th protesters who trespassed and were kept in jail for 2 years without a trial over trespassing charges. And of course, the Supreme Court has thrown out the statute they wanted to go after everyone on. They didn't wait. They've already had them in jail for 2 years. So the Democrats' policy on crime is to imprison their political opposition. The Republican policy is to arrest and deport the foreign criminals and to arrest and prosecute the domestic criminals. The only deterrent to crime is consequences to being caught doing it. If there are no consequences, you're advocating for criminal behavior to effect what? An insurrection or a revolution? Which one would it be? Oh, you say both? Yeah, I think that's probably right. Probably both. So energy, economy, border, immigration, crime. Kamala offers no policy changes whatsoever. She doesn't want to talk about her policies. She says she'll fix the quality of life of the middle class. Yeah, how? How are you going to do that with energy at $6 a gallon for gas? How are you going to do that, Kamala? Be specific. What are you going to do? Order Google to hire 10 million people? Oh, they're all foreign, of course. Yeah, right. What an idiot. Oh, I'll do this and I'll do that, and Trump is so bad, and we are so good, and I'm not against fracking, and I won't kill the oil leases, and I want to seal the border. She's a pathological liar. She says whatever she has to say to gain popular support in the polls at the time. But every single one of the Democrats' policies are exactly the same under Kamala as they've been under Joe. And they're leading to the destruction of America, not its salvation, nor even its advancement. The quality of life is declining. The threat of world war is growing ever stronger as Where's Waldo develops at the White House. Where is Joe? Haven't seen him but once in the last month. What's the man, hiding in the basement again? You know, if he's not competent to run, he's not competent to serve. Why isn't the man being impeached under the 25th Amendment? It's obvious he has Parkinson's disease, dementia onset, and isn't capable of making decisions. You're being run by a shadow government, the deep state that betrayed and turned on President Trump in what can only be described as a bloodless coup within the ranks of the administration. So, the whole thing, as I say, the future of America depends on what happens under the next administration's energy policy. If you vote for Democrats, you're voting for economic suicide. If you're voting for Donald Trump, you're voting for economic recovery. It's not the man or his personality that's really important here. It doesn't matter how sick Joe Biden is or how braggadocio, New York bravado Donald Trump is. What matters is the results and the effects of the policies that the individual enacts. And if you don't keep your eye on the prize, better policies, you'll end up with total chaos and catastrophe. Economic, social, criminal, immigration, energy, transportation, every single one of Biden's policies and his cabinet appointees appears to be absolutely incompetent. They were all DEI hires. Every single one of them. And none of them are competent to do their job. We've seen incompetence from every single one of these secretaries except for maybe Lloyd Austin at Defense. And I would argue you can disagree with a lot of his policies. You could even argue at some point there's incompetence. So, it doesn't look good for America under Democrat political leadership. Again, the good news is I don't think it matters. I think everybody in the country understands the Democrats have done this to America and that Harris isn't going to fix it. She's lying. As soon as she gets in, she will be co-opted by the far left. And if she tries to stick to these middle positions that she's announced, she's going to get attacked by the far left at the upcoming Democrat convention, which now, of course, seems to be a foregone conclusion, as there's nothing democratic at all about the way the Democrat Party picked its candidate. They threw away the votes of 14 million Democrats who all supported Joe Biden, not anybody else. And then they decided not to have a new competition when he said, I'm too sick to keep going, so I'm stepping aside in the campaign. But I'm still going to sit here and play Waldo and running the government. You get to guess where Waldo is. Where's Waldo? Is he at the beach? Is he in the basement? Is he on the lawn? Is he walking to the helicopter? Is he falling down the stairs? Where's Waldo? And who's running this country? Okay, this is Thomas Freed on the Liberty Works Radio Network. This is a Truth Attack Hour, and we're just going to get right back into it. I mentioned this last week that one of the things that needs to be done in order to stop the long slide into worldwide recession that the planet seems to be headed into right now is the Houthis' interference with shipping through the Red Sea has got to be stopped. Joe Biden or Donald Trump should deploy a carrier force to that part of the world and wipe out everything the Houthis are using to stop shipping. All the boats, all the port facilities, all the docks, all the harbors, as many troops, as many headquarters, as many installations as they can. Just wipe it all off the face of the earth and then leave the carrier force deployed there with some cruisers to escort ships through the Red Sea to the canal so that we can stop this interference with worldwide shipping, which is raising costs and delaying times with delivery of goods and is going to cause product issues, product shortages, product cost increases, and shipping cost increases, which will all depress world trade. This is one of the first things that needs to be done, is the Houthis have got to be stopped with interfering with world trade. Okay, so I guess that's it. Let's move on to these other topics. The Olympics are on. They'll be on for a couple of weeks. And oh my God, did you see any of the opening ceremony? You know, I put it on for like 5 minutes and I couldn't understand a single thing. None of it had to do with athletics, and it all seemed to be creative far left politics, right down to a what should we say, recreation? No, it wasn't a recreation, a depiction, a false depiction of the Last Supper in a derogatory, or what a lot of people felt was derogatory manner. And I mean, my God, you open the Olympics with making fun of religious ceremony. A lot of people are boycotting the Olympics because of it. They think it was disgraceful that they were mocking the Last Supper and other Christian events with the way things were depicted on the opening ceremony. It really was just as hard to watch for more than a couple of minutes. I had to shut it off, and I've done most of this reporting from listening to what others said about it and reading short parts of it afterwards because I couldn't take the whole thing. It was just unwatchable. So, in the Olympics, they're allowing a transgender male boxer to compete, and a female boxer dropped out after 45 seconds. She got hit harder than she'd ever been hit in her life, she said, and didn't want to fight the guy. She felt like she was going to be hurt, and she quit the match. And this man may end up winning the gold medal in the female division at the Olympics. He wasn't allowed to compete at the World Championships because he is a man, but the Olympics let him in for some strange reason. He's XY, and if you're XY, it's no way. If it's XX, you're in. XY, it's sin. So you got a man competing in the Olympics who's going to win possibly the gold medal in the women's division, and what this will lead to is no women winning gold medals anymore. They'll all be won by men who feel like women and are allowed by the Olympics Committee, pushing this world nonsense, this global social order destruction theory, pushing it into people's faces by awarding gold medals to men in women's divisions. It's sick is what it is. It's sick. It's insane. It's sick. It's crazy. And the Biden administration, of course, wants to reinterpret Title IX as supporting men who feel like women instead of supporting women in the safe spaces as was originally intended by Congress in the middle 70s. The original intent of the legislation was to protect women, to give women an opportunity, not psychologically disordered men an advantage against women. The whole point was to take away the male advantage over women in athletics and other spaces that women were being dominated in or left out of entirely. So it's a complete perversion of the Title IX legislature, both its original intent and its enactment, which should be guided and controlled in the courts strictly on the biological science of chromosomes. XX, you're in. XY, bye. Go compete with the men. Oh, I can't win with the men. Well, then pick something else to do professionally. You don't get to pretend you're a woman and beat up on women in order to collect the medals, the accolades, and the purses. Those are reserved for the girls and the women. least that's my opinion, and that was what the law was written to do. And the Democrats have decided to corrupt the law just like they've done with everything else. They corrupted the law on the border. They corrupted the law on immigration. They corrupted the law on energy. They corrupted the law. You name it. They've corrupted the law. January 6th, that's a corruption of the law. Donald Trump's trials in New York, Florida, D.C., Georgia, that's all corruption of the law. And the judges have started manipulating the courtrooms and not allowing defendants to bring testimony in from experts or to present the law to the jury. Here's what I understood the law to be, and this is why I think you should see that the law says my action was protected. Objection! You can't let that law in. They're not allowed to see the law. Objection sustained. You can't show the jury the law. The federal courts are lying to you. The judges are lying to you. They've become your enemy. They're no longer enforcing law. They're enforcing political and philosophical agenda against political opponents. Well, they failed to bring charges against the real criminals. How much more evidence do you need? Why are the cartels running amok while Catholics are going to prison? Why are the gangs running the cities while parents are the ones being prosecuted for objecting to CRT and transgender males beating their girls up in the bathrooms and on the athletic fields and courts? How much do you need to see, America, before you realize the Democrats are the problem? Just like socialism has always been a problem. From China to Germany to Cuba to North Korea. It's always been a problem. It results in nothing but tyrannical despotism. So, everything is a mess. And I guess here we should go through this. Donald Trump, of course, has said that there should be no tax on tips. And of course, he's absolutely right. Tips are a gift. There's no contract for it. The federal government has no constitutional authority to tax gifts. The whole IRS gift nonsense, gift tax is nonsense. There's no federal authority to tax gifts. What would that be? An impost on foreign activity, a duty on exported goods, or an excise on commodities, licenses, or corporations? Which one of those does a gift tax fall under? It doesn't. It doesn't exist. There's no contract, there's no invoice, there's no bill. The diner doesn't have to leave a tip. They gift it to the waiter or waitress for exceptional service. That's not taxable income. There's no profit in a gift. So definitely, he's right. He should have Congress write the bill. No tax on tips. Just one line. No tax on tips. You don't need to put anything else into it. Just see if the Democrats will vote for it or not. All the Republicans will. Oh, and you might want to add a second line. No tax on Social Security. Let's let the older folks have the money that they worked for and are getting as a benefit without taking a portion of it back, because with all the inflation and the higher costs, they can't make ends meet. They shouldn't have to pay the tax on the Social Security. Oh, and you really want to fix the system? Why don't you put a third line in it? No tax on labor. Because there never was a tax on labor. That's a direct tax on the person. And the income tax was never intended to be, and is not in the law, a tax on labor. It's a tax on foreign activity, corporate activity, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms activity, commodities, licenses, and corporations, and foreign activity, the activity of foreign persons and the activity of persons in foreign places. That's what the original income tax legislation did in 1913. That's why no American citizens paid tax on their labor from 1913 to 1942. It was only in 1942 when the victory tax came into being to fund World War II for only 2 years. That was the first time federal tax law touched the labor of the American people with legal effect as a tax. And that law expired 2 years later because the Constitution says any law that funds war can only last for 2 years. Each and every Congress has to fund the war in order for it to continue. Because historically, if you stopped funding the war, the soldiers didn't get paid and they went home. They didn't stay to fight without getting paid. So each Congress, and that means, of course, that the American people can stop any war they want to stop. All they have to do is vote in a body of representatives who promise to not fund it any further. And the war can be ended within 2 years if the American people can collectively get together to act in unison to stop a needless and unnecessary war. You know, like the one in the Ukraine or in Palestine between Hamas and Israel, Ukraine and Russia, Iran and everyone, the Houthis and everyone, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. All of these things could have been stopped simply by voting in a Congress that says we won't fund the war. But in 1942, they passed the victory tax to fund World War II, and everybody bought into it. They bought into the patriotic duty pushed out by government propaganda to give up a portion of your paycheck to fund the war to defeat the Nazis in the European theater and the Imperial Japanese in the Pacific theater. And the American people bought into it. Everybody put up. Nobody stood up and objected. And when the law expired in 1944, Congress looked around and said, holy smokes, nobody sued. We can't let this power die. So they reenacted a new law, the Current Tax Withholding Act. It's the subtitle C tax laws that we're currently under, that authorizes the citizen, the employee, to ask for tax withholding where there is no tax imposed. And then the employer, based on the employee's allowance certificate, the W-4, he does what's requested of him. He withholds the tax even though there's no tax imposed. And that withholding creates the presumptive appearance of subjectivity to the tax when there is none in law, as there is no authority to directly tax the labor of the American people because they worked and earned money. That's a false and unconstitutional enforcement of the laws that has been fraudulently perpetrated by the IRS since the late 50s and early 60s. And of course, it's all been exposed as being completely fraudulent by Donald Trump's new tax legislation, which specifically declared the constitutional authority for the federal income tax is not the 16th Amendment. It's Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1. That means it's part of the impost, duty, and excise taxing powers because that's all there is in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1. There's no direct taxation. That's in Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3, and Article 1, Section 9, Clause 4, the apportionment limitation and the proportionate imposition limitation under the census. So the claim that you owe the tax under the 16th Amendment is now proven on the congressional record with congressional intent to be a fraudulent claim, a fraudulent enforcement of a non-existent power. There is no power to tax directly and without limitation, as the courts and the IRS and the DOJ have been arguing and doing to you for 65 years. It's all a complete and total constitutional fraud. And the new law proves it. Take back your freedom, America. Head over to taxfreedom.com and get educated. I think I hear the music coming up. We'll be back next week. This is Thomas Fried on the Liberty Works Radio Network. And keep reading, get educated, get disindoctrinated. The propaganda is killing you. And the media is doing it intentionally. Very good. Oh, stop recording.